Hello, everyone, and many thanks, as always, for joining this show news summary from Moscow program. Today is 15th of January. Now it's 12 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time. And as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully you will find new segment informative and useful. And in that case, please like the video, share video with your friends, and in that case, please and dear friends, like the video. Share. Goodness me, man! What I'm trying to do is to just to make sure that I'm not freezed again. I have notebook next just to monitor. And so yes, what I was saying, man. If you like the video, please click that like button, leave some commentary. Will be helpful, definitely. And if you can, switch to my Rumble channel. I'm streaming on both channels, as you know, simultaneously. And if you can, switch to my Rumble channel. Link is under this video on YouTube in the description box. And watch update there. If you want, you can use rant feature to send a question or to donate during the stream. And that's about it for intro, I guess. I have prepared quite interesting update, I think, and I'm a bit excited because this morning I watched interview of Tucker Carlson with a Russian intellectual, aide of Russian presidents, current president, former aide, by the way, of current president Putin, and also I believe he was in a circle of Yeltsin, previous first Russian president after collapse of Soviet Union. And surprisingly, I mean, if you watch the video, probably you know where I'm going with this. If you watch that interview, by the way, and I definitely highly recommend to watch it. It was really interesting. It's on Tucker Carlson's YouTube channel, for example. And yes, interview was with Sergei Karaganov, and based on Wikipedia. I'm not a biographer of Karaganov. I know who he is. I have seen quite a few his appearances on different forums. I have read quite a few statements from him. And he is a Soviet and Russian political scientist and economist, also doctor of historical science and academic director of the Faculty of World Economy and International Affairs at the National Research University High School of Economics, one of the top universities here in Russia, by the way, High School of Economics. So that's with whom Tucker Carlson had an interview. And during this interview, by the way, at least on a few occasions, I myself was a bit surprised, positively surprised, because Karaganov basically shared their opinions that I have talked about on quite a few occasions with you. For example, he mentioned the potential of Russia, India, US cooperation, Russia, US, India triangle, which would be very useful for humanity if somehow we will manage to build this kind of construction. It will be useful for humanity in many ways, including to sort of contain China if necessary. And veterans of our community know perfectly well how many times I have said that Russia and US are not natural enemies. We actually are natural allies, supposed to be, at least allies. And even from practical standpoint, it would be great if rational, pragmatic, adequate people will replace current insane elements in US ruling class. And if they will try at least, right, to build with Russia a good working relationships to start with, right? And then to work on architecture of new world order in a way in which there will be its three world powers: Russia, US, India, together with China, by the way, that will make sure potentially to keep this world at peace, but same time to be on the safe side and just in case some 15, 20, 30 years after today, some new leaders of China will decide that they want to be now dominant force in this world. This triangle, Russia, US, India, would keep Beijing at bay, right, in check. So I have spoke about this topic on quite a few occasions. Maybe some members of our community didn't really understood what I was saying. And I'm afraid quite often some members of our community, at this point, former members of community, are leaving us, unsubscribing to my YouTube Rumble channels, from my Patreon and Boosty channels, just because they don't understand what I'm coming from. And instead of asking questions or seeking the explanations, they are just leaving the community. Some of them did write to me about it, so I know for sure that this kind of stuff is happening, which is sad, obviously, which is sad because, well, as you can see, by the way, it's not just me. Someone with a few decades of experience in journalism, and also quite a few decades of experience in life itself, writer, nothing to be said about her. Not bad education, really, I think, in Best Georgian University, Tbilisi State University. I mean, I am still consider myself to be ordinary citizen journalist, right? When Karaganov is an expert, right? Well-known intellectual that everyone recognizes as such. And when Karaganov is sharing opinions that are somewhat similar to mine, this is definitely needed reassurance to me personally, because this work that I do, dear friends, is quite a lone worker, and there is a risk that you may end up in a tunnel vision. So you have to constantly challenge your own takes on different matters, right? And that's what I do. But nevertheless, it is a great reassurance when someone like Karaganov shares the similar takes on major topics, right? So that's the one point that you might find interesting if you will listen to this interview. Also, by the way, somewhat surprisingly, or not, maybe this is not the right word, but Karaganov also described the globalist Western ruling class as an evil force. And who else does it? I do it, right? I never heard from anyone else this taker on the Western ruling elites. I just saw them as to be evil force, right? As many others did, right? Worldwide, including Karaganov. So this is also reassuring that I'm not losing my freaking mind there. I'm on spot on this matter, because Western ruling class, European elites, globalists, we can call it whatever, there clearly are an existential threat for humanity. And we as a humanity, as a collective, have obligation before future generations to deal with this evil force that Western ruling class is, right? And seems like Karaganov shares this take. And this is not all. He also, at some point, while being in a conversation with Tucker Carlson, went to speak about Russia's nuclear doctrine, potential escalation with Europe. And he did mention that potentially in a year or 2 years' time, we might end up in a situation when, due to reckless inhuman policies of the globalists, European elites, we might end up in a situation when Russian President Putin, who is exercising constantly this tremendous level of restraint, maybe he will find himself in a situation when there will be no other options left but to take some extreme steps to deter this evil force and to deploy nuclear weapons. I have spoke about neither to denuclearize or demilitarize leading regimes, globalist regimes in Europe quite a few times, including, if necessary, with deployment of nukes. Karaganov said that there is in his opinion, there is a risk potential that after some time, Moscow might take some action against Germany and the UK, including with this extreme force nuclear weapons. And he's not happy about it. He says during the conversation that he really hopes it will not come to it, understandably so, but hope is not an argument, right? And so he mentioned Germany and UK. I will add France. I always, when it comes to topic of demilitarization of this inhuman terrorist evil regimes in Europe, first of all, UK, France, and Germany, I'm always quite direct and say that it's even though UK is leading the charge in this proxy war against Russia, at least from Europe, France definitely has to be demilitarized and denuclearized, 100%. By the way, we as a humanity cannot allow this reckless ruling class of the Europe, or reckless regimes in Europe, France and UK in particular, to have such a destructive force as nuclear weapons are. So I don't know if Western ruling class did listen to this interview. Some of them will probably do, right? And they will have something to think about, because only so much Moscow can tolerate when it comes to Western hostilities, when it comes to European hostilities, and they might come when Russia will actually retaliate, and not just with conventional weaponry, but also potentially with nuclear weapons. And European elites already give Russia legitimate reasons to strike back, and strike back strong. I remind you, dear friends, that on at least several occasions, Russian nuclear triad was attacked, which is based on Russian updated nuclear doctrine, is a hostile step that gives Russian president, commander-in-chief, legal authority, according to Russian law, to strike back on hostile sides with all means necessary, including nuclear weapons. So it was a very interesting interview, by the way. Tucker Carlson himself paid attention to some of their, of course he would, some of their very important statements of Karaganov, and his headline on the video is, breaking news, Russia will nuke Germany and the UK if Ukraine war continues. A one-stop Putin advisor. That's Tucker Carlson's headline. And, this is just a possibility. Karaganov didn't say that this is definitely going to happen. Western ruling class has the opportunity to face the reality, acknowledge that they lost this proxy war against Russia, capitulate, agree on a very significant concessions, and then we will work out the new architecture of the relationships, right? And the security in Europe. But if they will refuse, then that means they will continue escalation. And at some point, yes, we will probably reach that point when some very serious steps have to be taken. So yeah, that's the stuff that I wanted to begin today's show. Definitely recommend, dear friends, to take a look at this program of Tucker Carlson. Was very interesting. Very interesting. And that's being said, it was useful to me personally, because yet again, by the way, when you work in this field, as I said already, I mean, it is always a risk that you may end up in a tunnel vision, which is dead end, right? So you have to regularly challenge yourself, your opinions, your takes, your analytics, And when someone as a highly regarded intellectual as Karaganov is, shares somewhat similar, not exactly similar, but somewhat similar takes as you have on major topics, this is very much reassuring. It's needed stuff, by the way, right? So, okay, that's been said, dear friends. Let's go through some other news, and I want to share with you this information from RIA Novosti that air defense systems on duty here in Russia last night intercepted 34 drones that were launched by Kiev regime with the assistance of NATO. I can give you some details on that. So, over the course of the past night, air defense systems intercepted and destroyed 34 Ukrainian fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles. 19 drones were intercepted over the Rostov region, 6 over the Bryansk region, 5 over the Volgograd region, 1 drone each over the Belgorod, Kursk, Voronezh regions, and 1 drone over the Sea of Azov. In this particular report, there is no information about casualties as a result of this terrorist attack on Russia or more or less significant damage. Also, RIA Novosti is reporting that head of Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, inspected a joint group of forces visited one of the headquarters, by the way, basically, right, and stated that Russian troops are advancing all along the front line. Let me give you some details on that. So the Russian joint group of forces is advancing in virtually all directions, stated Chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, Valery Gerasimov. He inspected the progress of the combat missions carried out by units and the military formations of the Center Group of Forces operating in Dnipropetrovsk direction in the zone of special military operation. Their offensive of their formations and the military units of the joint group of forces is being carried out practically in all directions, Gerasimov said, which is true, by the way. Maybe Kherson direction is relatively not active, right? But on all the other directions, and that's because of the river, right? That's because of the river, the Dnieper. But on all the other directions, Russian advances are quite significant and impressive. And on this matter, dear friends, let me give you information that Russian armed forces liberated settlement of Kamarovka in the Sumy region. I can show you on the map this settlement. Something is wronger with this map. There should be icons there in idea, but there is not, right? Nothing is working properly, man. What's going on? VPN is not working properly. Internet is not working properly. Even maps not working properly. And I'm paying for all of it, man. To use every single one of them, you have to pay, man. And so what am I doing here? I don't know, man. It's just getting to my nerves at this point when I'm paying quite significant money for these services and they are not providing. What the hell? Something has to be done about it. And this is Kamarovka, by the way. This is Kamarovka settlement on the border, right on the border with the Russian Federation. And well, maybe we are about to observe another Russian sectoral scale offensive operation in the Sumy region, with the creation of another buffer zone on the borderline. Might be there a case, but in any ways, initiative, by the way, is of course in Russian hands. And what I was focused in the past 24 hours is Liman direction. There are a number of sources in the Russian segment of internet that are reporting about very significant progress of the Russian armed forces around Liman. And well, if this advance continues under the current speed, I guess if not before end of this week, if not in next 2-3 days, most likely before end of next week, Liman will be in operational encirclement. Just look how many icons are here. This is all. Most of it is offensive operations, local scale offensive operations of the Russian armed forces, and this is the Liman itself. So Russian activity is all around, right? So that's been said, dear friends. Let's continue with some other news. Yesterday I reported in an update that, according to Bloomberg, Steve Witkoff, aide of U.S. or special envoy of U.S. President, and son-in-law of U.S. President Jared Kushner were planning to visit Russia in January. And I was not really okay with this report, and I'm not okay with this report because I don't want Russian president to waste any time talking to these nobodies, right? And Trump, his administration already proved, by the way, that no deal can be done with them, right? Enough time has passed, right? Enough time has passed since the inauguration of the Trump, since the beginning of his second term enough time has passed for Trump, right, and his team to demonstrate that they are actually serious about the escalation with Russia. And all we see, by the way, on the level of policies, actual policies, is only escalation. Rhetoric cannot be counted, right? Rhetoric is just cheap shit. On the practical terms, on the policy level, all US does is escalating with Russia, continuous hostility, and plays a leading role still in this proxy war that Western ruling class is waging against Russia. And that's the main reason, not only, but one of the main reasons why I'm against, not necessarily against, why I'm kind of frustrated with the Russian president wasting time talking to these nobodies, man, Witkoff and Kushner. And Trump was asked about it, if there is plans to send Witkoff and Kushner to Moscow, and he said he has no freaking idea about it. He don't know. He didn't confirm this report, and okay, that's good, man. Let's hope. I will hope, by the way, that Russian president never ever will waste a single second talking to these freaking morons that represent US right now. They didn't deserve no attention, right? And for global security purposes, between defense ministries, between security services, intelligence communities, there can be a couple of backdoor means of communication left, and that's about it, right? There is no need to continue this nonsensical quasi-diplomatic game on part of Moscow. No need in that, right? I think. Meanwhile, as I said, talk is cheap. Talk means nothing, right? And that's why no one should take seriously whenever Trump says something that kind of makes sense. For example, Reuters reported that Trump, in an interview, said, in an exclusive interview, I guess, said that Zelensky, not the Putin, is holding up Ukraine peace deal. So he went after Zelensky this time around, but her question is how longer he will stand on this position. Like 24 hours, 48 hours, how long it will take before he will start again whining about how disappointed he is in Putin and stuff like that. So talk is cheap. Talk means nothing, especially when we are talking about Western ruling class, especially, right? And their statements. Policies, that's what matters. And on the policy level, US was and still is a leading force in this proxy war against Russia. Ideally, of course, I would love to see American side is de-escalating, agreeing on concessions before Russia for all the harm that was done to Russian people, to Russian state, with the criminal activity of the Washington. And that will create a basement, at least in a somewhat okay basement for Moscow and Washington to try at least, right, to build up relationships, at least towards the working level. And ideally, of course, I would love to see this triangle, Russia, US, India, right, to to make sure that world is kept safe, right? That would be great, but that is a hope. That could be done in an ideal world, right? Maybe this would be possible in 10, 20 years from now when this aging ruling class, current ruling class in the US will be replaced potentially and hopefully with some more adequate, rational people. But right now, no chances, Bob. Right now, no chances, and that's why I'm saying that under the Trump administration, US lost its potentially last chance to save itself. And if you ask me, I'm quite sure, by the way, US is doomed, as Europe is, right? Trump lost their last chance for US to survive. And now we're going to observe in next years, couple of decades, by the way, we will observe how US will crash under its own weight. This is not good. This is not good, by the way. I'm not happy about it because yet again, I would prefer to see new global security architecture with 4 countries leading the charge: Russia, US, India, and China, obviously. And Russia, US, India will be in a position to keep China in check, right? In case some 20, 30 years from now, China might have some leaders that will try to change the game. But yet again, it's not up to our hopes, not up to us at this particular point to decide which way US will go. And Trump clearly is pushing US towards self-destruction. Trump and his administration and whatever forces are behind him, they are just too freaking stupid, right? If US needs anything right now, US needs people in leadership and on decision-making positions that are capable of strategical thinking, that are capable of complex thinking. Not these morons, by the way, that we see in Washington. There is not a single freaking intellectual there in Washington. Level of degeneration is beyond anything, right, that we have seen ever. And at this point, one might argue where political class has degenerated more, in Europe or in US. They are they are competing with each other, and they are in terms of degeneration, they are all like very low, right? These are morons, man. You will struggle to have an intellectual conversation with anybody from Western ruling class, and the only reason why they still are maintaining power is because of this generational transition, right? That had happened in the West for centuries, when power was when position of power, position of elites was given to people by their previous generation, not because of their hard work or successful work or success, but because of their previous generations, right? And these generational so-called elites have to be neutralized, because they are finished, man. They are degenerates, total degenerates, right? It is what it is. Also, when it comes to Western hostilities towards Russia, this morning Russian media reported that FSB, Federal Security Service, has identified a British intelligence agent sent to Russia posing as an embassy employee, British embassy employee. There is a quote here: during their counterintelligence work, the Federal Security Service, FSB, identified an undeclared British intelligence officer, Greth Samuel Davis, born August 8, 1980, who was sent to Russia under the cover of being the second secretary of the administrative and economic department of the British Embassy in Moscow. FSB stated the British agent has been stripped of his accreditation and must leave the country within the 2 weeks. That's the statement. And yes, that agent will leave Russia in 2 weeks. But I have a question, man. Why nothing happened to this agent? Why are we being this freaking polite, man? I mean, how long are we going to stay this polite? This is a freaking agent, right? And their accidents happened all the time. So why nothing happened to this filthy animal, to this MI6 asset? Why nothing had happened to him? I don't know, man. I mean, if I was in charge, I would make sure that not just that agent, but I will hunt down MI6 assets all over the world, man. I will hunt down them everywhere, right? And I would obliterate MI6 head office on the Thames in London. You know that building, right? I would make sure no one gonna freaking survive from that building. These are enemies of Russia, and they can be no politeness or mercy towards their enemies. Let's kill them all, man. Let's kill them all. Enough is enough. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. What's going on? I cannot understand. I'm not even gonna try, man. If you see agent, just fucking kill him, man. Send the message. Cut his fucking head off, man. Right? And send the message to the London. You mess around, we will fucking kill you all. Right? Just do it, man. There was a times, by the way, during the Soviet Union when Russian Soviet security services were not messing around. You know, there was an instance when Hezbollah, by the way, Hezbollah was forming at the time, and Hezbollah active assets kidnapped Russian diplomatic staff in Lebanon. And you know what happened to those Hezbollah elements? They'd been found in a car in a freaking pieces, literally, by the way, in a pieces. And after that, Russian embassy never encountered any issues with either Hezbollah or anybody. So there is a circumstances when only language that your enemy might understand is a force, and and I think we are in that exactly situation with UK, or with US, with Germany, with France, with Italy, with all the other NATO member states, maybe with the exception of few. So let's use this freaking force, man, right? Let's send a clear message that we are no longer playing no freaking games, and we are going after them, right? And of course, I'm talking about enemies, which is a Western ruling class and their secret services and their militaries. I'm not talking about civilians, obviously, right? We all understand this. But nevertheless, well, it is good that Russian intelligence identified this filth in British embassy, and that garbage will be sent back to UK. It is unfortunate that not in a body bag, but yeah, I mean, things happened. Let's continue. Well, Anna is telling me to calm down. Yeah, I should, but yet again, I'm direct, man. There is only a few places on internet, I think, where you actually can hear real talk, real emotions, and real talk, man. And I think people are watching my shows exactly because they know this guy is talking real, man. He's talking true. Okay, I'm calm now. So let's continue. Let's continue with some other user. Ukraine's so-called parliament extends martial law and mobilization until May 2026, as Zelensky requested a couple of days ago, and I shared information about it, isn't it, in previous updates. Also, this so-called parliament in Ukraine appointed Mikhail Fedorov as the new defense minister, who previously served as a minister of digital transformation. Just something that are not really that important, but nevertheless might be useful to know that Ukraine, so-called Ukraine, has a new defense minister. And now let's go through some other topics. And well, what our evening or what our afternoon yesterday we all experienced, isn't it? Afternoon by Russian, by Moscow time. And what I mean by this is that media outlets, quite a number of media outlets, by the way, including Reuters, for example, that RT is referring to, start reporting that a US attack on Iran is imminent. And at one point, so many outlets start reporting about it that at some point I was thinking maybe I should stay awake all night, so that if anything happens, then I will launch a live stream, emergency live stream or something like that. But well, nothing happened. Thankfully, there was no attack on Iran from US or Israel. But nevertheless, nothing has been cancelled there, as far as I can tell, and because of the intent of Western ruling class and the Zionists, neocons, to destabilize Middle East, shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf, and cut off global South, China, from Middle Eastern energy sources, is still in works. I think next phase of escalation in regards to Iran, in regards to the Middle East, is absolutely inevitable. So therefore, I think it's worth to go through some details about current reports on the matter. But yesterday, we had this report that U.S. military attack on Iran is imminent and could come within mere hours. Reuters has claimed, citing anonymous sources. On Wednesday, Reuters quoted an unnamed Western military official as saying that all the signals are that U.S. attack is imminent. The anonymous source, however, reportedly added that that is also how this administration in U.S. behaves, to keep everyone on their toes, with their unexpectability being part of the strategy. And well, they did manage to create headlines, at least worldwide. That's for sure. And well, probably they were interested while sharing this information. Probably they were monitoring through some intelligence means work of air defenses of the Iran, where they are located. They were trying probably to detect air defenses, where in which areas they are located, range that they cover. So they will now work on potential ways to avoid these air defense umbrellas, right? To navigate around them during the attacks. Maybe that was the actual purpose of this misinformation of the world community by Western propaganda means, like Reuters, right? And all of them are working on Western ruling class, obviously. There is no single true media outlet in the West. All of them are assets of the Western ruling class, right? And controlled by them through secret services and through other means. I don't think I have to argue about this topic, right? But nevertheless, we have to monitor, isn't it? When you have a right approach towards the Western propaganda means, then it will become a little more easier to understand which way they are pushing, what to be expected, right? Also, NBC News, for that matter, stated that Trump would want a military action in Iran to be swift and decisive. Okay, swift and decisive. I don't think it will work out this way. Not this time around, because well, if Iran will allow either Israel or US to strike on Iran anytime they want, and then seek the escalation, then with these constant strikes, they will quite effectively demilitarize Iran. They will quite effectively take out Iran's missile capabilities, air defense capabilities, right? So I don't think Tehran is in a position to play this game. And if so, whenever attack comes from whichever side, Israel, US, UK, and others, they have to retaliate, and retaliate this time around. They have to retaliate with a massive scale. This is the only way they have to retaliate with the strongest possible ways, right? Otherwise, they're not going to be able to sustain this type of warfare. When Israel and US attack, then a couple of months off, then they will attack again. Couple of months off, then they will attack again. Iran not going to be able to rebuild its military capabilities if they will allow to be attacked every couple of months, right? And seems like that's the strategy that was sort of chosen by Western ruling class to weaken Iran, right? So if there is attack, Iran should retaliate as strongly as they possibly can. And not necessarily only in the Middle East. War is war, right? And well, if I was in charge of IRGC, by the way, Iran's one of the major security forces, I would make sure that I have my assets, hundreds of them, even better, thousands of them, well-trained special forces fighters on U.S. soil. That's what I would do about it. That I would implement a program 10, 15 years ago, right? And would infiltrate a US, UK, other hostile countries with thousands of special forces fighters. Just in case. And if Iran is attacked by these countries, then I would activate this network, right? To strike on their own soil, to strike on enemies on their own soil. That would be a good strategy, I think, right? That would be a strategy that potentially might even deter enemy from striking you again, at least anytime soon, right? And war is war, yet again, by the way. War is war, right? You attack me on my soil, I will attack you on your soil. And I will choose legit military targets, by the way, right? Legit targets only. So maybe Iran did come up with such a program. And if so, then there must be thousands, potentially, assets of the Iranian security services, well-trained, well-prepared assets of the Iranian security services all over the Western world, potentially in Israel too, that will be activated when needed. Yeah, no one should be surprised, by the way. You know, if you wake up one day after U.S. attack on Iran and find out that well, there was an attack on U.S. base on U.S. soil and hundreds of U.S. militaries were exterminated. You know, you start the war, you will pay the price. That's how it is. And I don't think this swifter and decisive operations will work with Iran. I really don't think so. And clearly, my understanding of situation in Iran that I shared in last couple of days was correct. Tehran clearly regained their control over the situation, regained their initiative. The big role was in that Iran successfully suppressed their Starlink system, according to reports, right? And this is good, by the way. This is good because Iran was able to do so with either Chinese support or Russian support, and I think this was Russian support. I really believe it was Russian specialists that helped Iran to suppress Starlink, and it's good to know that we have such technology. Maybe it was Chinese, I don't know, but my hope is it was our, right? Hi. Oh, okay. We have a new subscriber on Patreon, right, Han? Right now, dear friends, new subscriber on the Patreon. Thank you very much for the subscription. And there is a comment and a question from a new subscriber, Melvin, by the way, and I will react on it after their news segment for sure. So yeah, let's continue with some other news. Hopefully I'm correct, and it was Russia that helped Iran suppress Starlink, because we do need to have that technology. If it was China, then somehow we should negotiate with China, either develop our own or negotiate with China to get our hands on that. And if they share that this technology with Iran, they would share this technology with us too, I guess. But I think it was our specialists. Anyways, by the way, as I said, US, Israel globalists and their allies, neocons and Zionists, by the way, are determined to destabilize Middle East, to provoke regional war on sectarian and ethnic lines, and I don't think they will stop. And therefore, we should expect further escalation. And on this matter, we have this report that U.S. carrier strike group is heading to the Middle East. And one of the reasons, I said that yesterday these rumors start spreading around about imminent U.S. attack on Iran. And at one point I was thinking, maybe should I stay awake all night? But then, while analyzing the situation, I was thinking to myself, I have seen no enough reports that necessary number of military assets were deployed either on Diego Garcia Island or in the Middle East, for example, assets or in Azerbaijan, right, or in Southern Caucasus region, assets that will be used against Iran potentially. So I was thinking, something is not quite right here. US is not yet ready to conduct a strike. And I guess I was correct, because this morning, quite a number of media outlets are reporting that US carrier strike group is still on its way to get closer to Middle East, right? And this aircraft carrier group is moving from South China Sea. So it will take her maybe 2-3 days at least, right, to get to the point from where strikes on Iran will be possible for aircrafts of this carrier. So therefore, I think next 2-3 days we should not really expect attack on Iran. Although, who knows, man? Who knows? There might be a couple of attack submarines, American submarines, in and around the Middle East, right? That can launch Tomahawk missiles. So, U.S. has a strike capability in a place, but I don't think enough to come up with a decisive attack or large-scale attack. 100, 200 Tomahawk missiles, not really going to do much. During this special military operation, during this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, how many cruise missiles or how many ballistic missiles Russia used? Hundreds and thousands at this point, I guess, right? Thousands. And what? These missiles are good to take out some specific targets. Sometimes several of them are necessary, but when we are talking about a vast area, and Iran, by the way, is 3 times bigger than Iraq. When we are talking about such a massive country, by the way, a couple of hundred Tomahawks that can be launched by 2-3 US submarines, or let's say a couple of more Arleigh class cruisers or frigates or whatever they are, not gonna do like shock and awe effect, not gonna create shock and awe effect, isn't it? So US, for actual decisive attack that will crumble Iran, US has to bring in basically all the military capability they have if Washington intends to fight Iran with a conventional weapon. Otherwise, even one aircraft carrier, by the way, will not really do much, right? With airstrikes, US not going to be able to defeat Iran. Impossible. And if US will send its troops, at that point, Iran has won, because no way Israeli or and troops or their Western allies gonna be able to succeed on the ground against Iranian people? Impossible, just impossible, right? And you know what I want to say also? Maybe this is a highly unlikely, but I would like to see Russian Navy and Chinese Navy being deployed in the Middle East. I want Russia and China to get involved in this whole situation. We cannot allow Iran to be destroyed there. And by the way, let's keep in mind that the Western ruling class intends to destabilize the region, destabilize Iran included, right? And in Iran, as I said yesterday, Iran is a very multi-ethnic, multicultural country, by the way. Majority are Persians, of course. 40-50% of the population are Persians, but another 20-30% are Azerbaijanis, by the way. There is also big population of Kurds, 5, 7, up to 10% potentially. There are Belugis. There are many different groups, right? And what the Western ruling class actually wants is to create tensions between inside the Iranian society, right? Between different ethnicities. And we cannot allow, we as allies of and friends of Iranian people, cannot allow Western ruling class and their Zionist assets, Zionist allies to succeed. We cannot allow civil war to happen in Iran. We cannot allow regional war to happen in the Middle East. We just cannot allow this. And one of the ways how we can interfere is to send our militaries, ground forces if necessary, in Iran directly, although Tehran has to invite for that, and also Navy. China and Russia have enough naval capabilities to send a significant force there and send a message to Western world and their Israeli allies that, well, that's it. That's it. We will not allow them to attack Iran. Soviet Union did that, by the way, when US, UK, and many other Western countries were planning to attack India in 1971. That was, isn't it? Soviet Union sent the fleet and make it clear that if Western world will go ahead with their plans to attack India, Soviet Union will nuke them, will exterminate them all. And Moscow was so clear about it that Western ruling class retreated. They backed down. And I think something similar has to be done now by Moscow and Beijing. Single-handedly, maybe none of us are in a position to actually force Western ruling elites to back down, but together, and especially if India will join us, well, that will be something, isn't it? And we can definitely save Middle East from total destruction. And that's exactly what Western ruling class wants and their Zionist allies. So, maybe Moscow and Beijing are working on some plans on this matter, and maybe today or tomorrow or day after we will see information that naval assets, let's say from South Africa, there are Russian and Chinese naval assets in South Africa, by the way. For example, right now, some exercises were conducted there, and maybe those naval assets and some additional forces will move towards the Middle East as a deterrent force. Maybe, right? Anyways, very difficult times are ahead of this world, ahead of Iran, obviously, and ahead of Middle East and the whole world. Meanwhile, the UK ambassador and all embassy staff was evacuated from Iran, which is a clearly indicator, in my personal opinion, that British ruling class intends to participate in this attack, upcoming attack on Iran. And this information is also an indicator that attack probably will take place if Russia, China, hopefully India also will not take some very serious steps to deter Western ruling class. Embassies are evacuated when war is beginning, right? Usually. Interfax is also reporting that, well, yesterday when these rumors spread around the world about imminent US attack, Iran has shut down its airspace. Although a couple of hours ago, I see reports, I read reports that Iranian airspace is open right now. So probably, at least for this particular moment, there is no threat of attack on Iran. And yet again, by the way, asset-wise, if my reading of the big picture is correct, US is far to be in a position to have enough assets to strike Iran with their decisive force. They are in not that position. They don't really have enough assets in the area, right? For now, things might change obviously in upcoming days. RIA Novosti is also reporting that emergency UN Security Council meeting on Iran will be held today at 11 p.m. Moscow time. And I believe this meeting, UN Security Council meeting, was initiated by the US. So let's see what side's going to talk about it. Yet again, hopefully, Moscow and Beijing will talk some sense to US ruling class, not to escalate. Otherwise, I mean, something might happen that Western ruling class is not ready for and will never be ready. Venezuela, of course, we have to talk about Venezuela, and quite interesting news, dear friends, that Venezuelan interim president announced ideology shift under the Trump pressure. This was reported on the Telesur TV. I guess this is Venezuelan TV channel, and yes, Delcy Rodriguez is making big move in terms of ideological transformation. What a surprise, by the way! What a surprise! It is unfortunate that due to my take on all this situation, on what happened in Venezuela, and I said straight away from the beginning, by the way, that this was a trade-off, isn't it? And most likely Maduro was a part of it, not just his government members, including this interim president, but also Maduro himself. They were part of this trade-off. And confirmation of that will be when Maduro will going to be freed or exchanged, let's say this way, in a year or 2 years time from now. Also, by the way, Maduro's son is in Venezuela and calling for to get behind this Delcy Rodriguez's government, which is nonsensical stuff, isn't it? If Maduro was not engaged in this whole trade-off, if anything, Maduro's family members should demand their resignations of the government members, right? For allowing kidnapping of the president to happen. Where is the responsibility, for God's sake, right? But no, a son of Maduro is calling to get united around this gathering of traitors of the Venezuelan people that call themselves government of this country. Now you have more and more indicators. Then, as time goes by the way, there are going to be even more indicators, indirect at least confirmations that this was a freak show, bloody freak show that Maduro, his criminal regime of traitors of the Venezuelan people and Americans come up with, right? Chinese probably had some role in that, because a few hours before all this bloody show happened in Caracas, a few hours before that, Maduro had a meeting with their Chinese representatives, right? So Chinese probably had something to do with all this trade-off stuff. Moscow, you might ask about Moscow. Moscow never was that big in Latin America or Venezuela since the collapse of Soviet Union, right? to be on a leading position. China was invested heavily in Venezuela and elsewhere, by the way. Russia-Venezuela trade, year-on-year level trade is like $300 to $500 million, man. So basically, there was no actual presence of Russia, significant presence of Russia or the Russian interests in Venezuela, while China was there heavily, right? And that's why I think maybe Moscow was not even informed about what is going to happen, about this trade-off, neither by Caracas, neither by Beijing, or maybe Moscow was informed, but because our presence in Venezuela is next to none, very little, by the way. Even if Moscow was not happy about this whole trade-off, what they could do, what Kremlin could do, say no, you cannot do this stuff, or we're gonna make it a public and stuff like that. No, it does not work that way. I mean, if Russian foreign minister will come up and say, you know what, that's what actually happened, it was a freaking trade-off, that will destroy relationships with China, or maybe not completely destroy, but severely damage her. And we don't want that. We just have no such a luxury to destroy or to jeopardize relationships with China, right? And that's it. That's why Moscow is just observing the situation, and all you hear from Moscow is, okay, now we will work with this government of Venezuela. What else can Moscow say? But it was a clearly trade-off, by the way, and this interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, is not shying away to say that, well, we're going to have now ideological shift, right? They're going to become a hardliner right-wing activists or something like that. It's crazy, man. How long it will take before people of Venezuela realize what had happened? Many of them already know, of course. Many of them already know, and that's why I'm saying armed uprising in Venezuela is absolutely inevitable. By the way, these are fighters. Venezuelan people are fighters, right? And even if they are sick and tired of this constant struggle that they are facing on a day-to-day basis in life, they will rebel. They will rebel anyways, right? Because they cannot, their consciousness will not allow them to stay quiet when their country being sold out, and the future of their kids and their grandkids, right? So people will rise. People of Venezuela will rise against the U.S. And against U.S. proxy regime and in Caracas. And China made a crucial mistake, by the way. I'm quite sure China had some role to play in that whole trade-off, and Beijing made a crucial mistake. If they actually believe that Washington will honor any agreement that they might have between each other, well, Beijing will soon find out hard way that they've been played by Americans. If maybe Washington promised that, you know what, we're going to take over Venezuela now, and you will help us with that. You will use your influence so that we will do the business there. And therefore, when you take over their Taiwan, we would not mess around you. Maybe something along these lines was talked between Beijing and Washington, and maybe that's why Washington was able to pull off this bloody trick there. And bloody trick because even though U.S. militaries had the green light, they went in and killed dozens of civilians anyways, for no reason whatsoever. But Beijing will soon find out that that this was a big mistake, because Washington not gonna honor no agreement, man. They never do. They just never do, man. That's how it is. And also on topic of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez yesterday posted on True Social, I guess, on some of the social media about phone conversation that she had there with Donald Trump. I held a long and courteous telephone conversation with her coaches, or whatever that word means, with the President of the United States, Donald Trump, conducted within a framework of a mutual respect in which we addressed bilateral work agenda for the benefit of our people, as well as our pending matters between our governments. If she is not a traitor of Venezuelan people, how come she did not mention that she demanded? And this is statement for public, right? So how come that she did not mention so that public will see and Trump will see also that she demanded the president of Venezuela to be released immediately? I mean, what the hell, man? Your president was just kidnapped, and if you had nothing to do with it, if it was not trade work, how you can say that you conducted a phone conversation with Trump on a mutual respect framework? What respect do you have to Trump, man? How you can have any respect? What are you talking about? It's crazy, man. But yet again, some people still are not convinced, by the way, right? Worldwide, I mean. And I guess in Venezuela too, that this was a freaking bloody freak show that everybody witnessed in regards to Venezuela. I have seen and read about many psyops, many different psyops, but nothing like we observe in Venezuela. It was a freaking freak show, man. Right? And all the media outlets worldwide, right? Even in alternative media, by the way, everybody is trying to pretend that, well, there was no trade-off and nothing like that had happened, and these Americans went in and do this stuff because they are just highly professionals, right? And that's it. And then also is this freaking sound weapons. Americans use sound weapons, and therefore Venezuelan forces were unable to offer any resistance, which is crazy. And what sound effects? What are you talking about? Sound effects or sound weapons or sonic weapons that only works on people in military uniform, right? But not on civilians. Crazy, man. So it's a baffling that world elites think humanity is just so dumb that they can come up with this kind of shit, right? And people will believe in this. This is bad, man. This is too bad. But they did manage. These global elites did manage to pull off a global quarantine, isn't it? Just a couple of years ago, they did conduct their global social experiment, isn't it? And quite successfully. So compared to that, I mean, this shit is nothing really. Anyways, let's continue. Trump and Greenland, isn't it? Greenland again, man. Trump went to comment on the matter of Greenland yesterday again. And he said basically, and you can see his post, by the way, from True Social on your screen. He went to say that if US will not take over the Greenland, then Russia's going to do this, and Chinese, for sure. Right? So this is justification. And as I was saying for quite a number of times before, at this point, there is nothing that cannot, in the Western world, by the way, there is nothing that cannot be justified by just mentioning Russia or China. And my comment was exactly that. I commented on this post. Is there any topic left that the scum of humanity in the Western leadership could not justify with a non-existent Russian or Chinese threat? That's a question. I mean, legit question, isn't it? How long will Western societies tolerate their abuser from their public figures or so-called elites? Also a legit question. How long this nonsense gonna be tolerated by Western societies? This is a legit question, man. Everything, I mean, so many stuff that is happening right now on a global scale is direct insult to our intelligence part. It's direct insult to human intelligence, and I refuse to believe that majority of humanity is just that dumb, man. That they can eat everything that is thrown to them by these so-called elites, man. I refuse to believe that most of humanity is just that freaking stupid. So if it's not that, if people are more clever than elites in the West think, or the global elites think, then where is their resistance? Why they are not challenging this craziness? I don't know. I don't get it, man. Danish defense ministry, meanwhile, has promised to return fire in the event of U.S. invasion, which is just tough talk, by the way. They're not going to return fire to nobody. So Danish military forces are obliged to return fire in the event of a U.S. military attack on Greenland, said Danish defense ministry spokesman Tobias Roe Jensen. And yes, you know what? At this point, I mean, this is really sad, man. This is really sad to observe. It's not funny. It might have some tragicomedic elements in it, all this story around Greenland, but maybe Europeans should just stop messing around, and maybe they should say, you know what, okay, just take it, because they cannot stop US anyways. They're just not gonna stop Washington, isn't it? If American ruling class is determined, and seems like they are, to establish full control, total control over the Greenland and take it from Denmark, that's what they're gonna do. And all these nonsensical statements and BS basically is absolutely unnecessary, right? Who they are trying to, I mean, what they even are trying to do, man. Everyone understands what's going on. Everyone understands that European states are freaking paper tigers. All of them, literally all of them, by the way. Not just Denmark, but every single one in Europe is a paper tiger. Only reason why UK and France, London and Paris, is being listened, or maybe not necessarily listened, but why world is still paying some attention to them is presence of nuclear weapons. That's the only reason. Without nuclear weapons, UK and France are also freaking paper tigers that no one cares about, right? So why we are observing these games, man? Just stop messing around, come up with some agreement, transfer Greenland to US, because you're gonna do it anyways, right? And that's it. And no Danish soldiers gonna open fire on American soldiers. Are you kidding me, man? What are you talking about? Although Denmark did send some of its troops, couple of its troops, literally few. It's not a battalion, not a brigade or something. No, literally few soldiers were sent from Denmark in Greenland for some exercises, and the same was done by France. France also sent several of its troops, literally several of its troops, to Greenland. What they trying to? What kind of message is this? If they want to act tough, for God's sake, send at least brigade, man. But they cannot send brigade. They have no logistics for that. So send battalion, okay. Send at least battalion, by the way, like 300, 400, 500 military personnel. They cannot do even that. So they are sending a couple of soldiers, literally a couple of soldiers, and I mean, you tell me what kind of message is that, and for whom? That will deter American ruling class from taking actions if they want to? No. And by the way, when it comes to Greenland, I think if Washington is actually serious in its intent to establish total control over the island, then they will do it literally like weeks before midterm elections, in a hope that this will give them additional support, right, during that elections from the public. It's not going to happen before that because it makes no sense, right? None of this story makes any sense, by the way, generally speaking. But if they're going to be U.S. occupation of Greenland, most likely like week or 2 weeks, couple of weeks before midterm elections, so that Trump and his inner circle will brag about how tough they are and look, man, U.S. become bigger, right? We have now this sea of ice, right? And most importantly, opportunity to kind of become a player in the Arctics, more or less serious player. That's actually what is going on, right? That's the reasoning behind this noise. Although Greenland alone is not enough. Greenland alone is not enough. US needs Canada too. US needs Canadian coastline too, and yeah, they're gonna occupy Canada also. We will see. We will see. They might also need they will need Norway. I mean, they will need Canada, and if they actually don't want to have any competitors, at least in the Western world, they have to do something with Norway, because look at their map, dear friends. So that's their Arctics, right? Most of it is Russian territory. It's and when it comes to northern maritime route, that is destined to become a major trade route for this world in years to come. Most of it is Russian economical waters, right? And Russia, for quite a while, developing northern sea route. Russia has infrastructure and continues to build up on that. Russia has icebreaker fleet, which is absolutely necessary to operate, to be a significant player in the Arctics, of course. When it comes to US, by the way, US only has Alaskan coastline in Arctics, like northern coastline, which is also something, but it's not enough. It's not enough. Greenland definitely increases their US's potential to become a major player in Arctics, but they also need they have to do something with Iceland potentially, and Norway, by the way, right? Because Norway is also pretends to be a big player in Arctics due to its coastline. So if you don't want no competitors from the Western world, at least, and US cannot compete with Russia, obviously, it's geography says it all, right? But US will have competition from their Western countries, European countries, right? And acquiring Greenland is not enough. They need to do something with their Iceland, with Canada, obviously. Also, then with and Canada is obviously freaking American continent, right? North America. So then they have to do something with the Icelander and do something with Norway. And what they're gonna do? Occupy? I don't know. I can understand why they want to be big player in Arctic, but I don't know, man. Even with their full scale occupation of Greenland, they might not succeed in this. Greenland may not be enough. Anyways, by the way, let's continue with a few other news, and U.S. Treasury Department Office of Foreign Assets Control has extended until February 28 the license, which expires on January 17, allowing negotiations and conditional agreements with Lukoil for the sale of Lukoil's international assets. And as you know, dear friends, there is quite a number of American companies that are interested now. There was a Swiss company, and now there is few American companies that express interest to buy foreign assets of Lukoil. And well, US, you see what US is doing. How you can trust US ever, by the way? They are on one hand, they're pretending to be American ruling class, by the way. They're pretending to be decent, which is laughable at this point. On the other hand, they are never honest, man. They impose sanctions on Lukoil and Rosneft, and they're forcing now these companies to sell their foreign assets. And there are American companies pop up straight away that want to buy these assets, although you can guess they will offer much less money than these assets actually worth. And at some point, Lukoil might be forced to sell it because maintenance of these foreign assets that cannot operate will cost more eventually, right? It's going to be costly. So something has to be done. And Lukoil end up in this situation, by the way, because there is no alternative financial and the banking system, alternative international trade architecture in this world, alternative to the Western one that is weaponized and is used against anybody and everybody Western class is not likes. And why we don't have alternative financial and the banking system? Because of the laziness of the BRICS bureaucracy. That's how it is, man. BRICS has every opportunity, everything, literally everything, to build this alternative that world is so desperate for, and years are passing by and almost nothing is done in this regard. And everyone is suffering, by the way, and not just outside of the collective West, but inside the collective West too. And on this very topic, I want to share with you this report that I see this morning that Scott Ritter, by the way, American expert, well-known American expert, by the way, in military and global affairs, shared with public information that he was debunked. Bank that he was using for 26 years refused to continue service, which is crazy, isn't it? And let me share what Scott Ritter himself write on his not True Social, but Twitter, I believe, Twitter X. So today, my banking institution of 26 years, Citizens Bank, declared that they were ending their banking relationships with me. My accounts were zeroed out without explanation. While I may eventually see this money returned to me, the question of why this occurred remains, and question remains, and then we'll kind of know the answer. Scott Ritter was targeted because of his opinions that don't really go well or hand to hand with their Zionist propaganda, neocon propaganda, globalist propaganda, right? They hate this guy. They hate Scott Ritter. And that's the result, by the way. They are trying to make his life as difficult as they can. And in the modern times, by the way, when you lose bank assistance, I mean, that's a big deal. Of course, you can still do some stuff, but, and if there was alternatives, by the way, in this world, if there was alternatives, I'm quite sure Scott Ritter and many other people worldwide, by the way, not just outside of the collective West, but inside the collective West too, would use these alternatives. If we had a BRICS cards like or big systems, financial systems, or transactional systems like Visa card and MasterCard. Why we don't have it, man? I'm asking this question time and again. Under I don't know. There is no answers, Bob. Why we don't have a BRICS alternative to the Visa and the MasterCard? Why we don't have alternative banks or banking system, right? That can be used everywhere, right? By anybody, without any political attachments to it. If there was something similar done by BRICS, if there was alternative, I'm quite sure Scott Ritter would use this alternative, and he will cancel relationships with the Citizens Bank because he would not need it. Because probably he was thinking that something like that might happen. Probably he had some doubts about trusting this bank and the Western financial and banking system in general. But he did not really have alternatives because there is none. And there is none because of these freaking lazy bastards from BRICS bureaucracy. That's how it is, man. Anyways, dear friends, this is it for news segment. Let me check right now. Media, some of the media outlets for potential breaking news. Well, first, troops have been deployed to Greenland. First troops from a number of European countries. Some European countries have sent the troops. I already mentioned France, Denmark. They send the troops. Oh, this is funny, by the way. According to Bild, last night in Nuuk, that's a settlement in Norway, landed the plane of Dutch militaries, Hercules plane. And on the board of this plane, there were French militaries, and there was another plane that landed, and on that with militaries, few militaries also. And today, they're going to be another flight to Greenland, which will bring 13 militaries from Germany. And when I said few militaries have been deployed, I meant that. Few, literally few. In some case, UK is sending one military. I read this morning some article, by the way, and I couldn't believe that the numbers were correct. According to those numbers, UK was sending one military. Germany was sending also a few, and now we have this report from Bild that Germany will send 13. And Denmark itself sent not even platoon, by the way. And platoon is like 30 men, correct? It's crazy. And they think they're going to deter American ruling class with deployment of a couple of soldiers. Insane. Is there any other more or less interesting news right now? That was published since I started the live stream. Not really. Peskov stated that Russian president will make a statement about some international developments during the meeting with their ambassadors today. Okay, let's see what Russian president will say if any breaking statements or major statements. Of course, I will share with you those statements during the next updates. And when it comes to this media outlet, so okay, no major developments for now. Okay, dear friends, and in that case, let me highlight this comment and the question from a new member of our Patreon and Boosted community, Melvin, from our Patreon community in this particular case. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Melvin, for joining our Patreon community. And the comment is, I'm pretty sure the US foreign policy revolves around the deal with Saudi Arabia, allowing them to spend and not affect the value of dollar. Worst thing you can do is not to buy oil with dollars. Do you feel that her deal is that important to dictate their policies? US dollar is called petrodollar for a reason, isn't it? And definitely trading of oil on the dollars, that was a global trend there, basically because Saudi Arabia, not just Saudi Arabia, but all the Gulf states, literally every country was selling their oil in dollars. Of course, this did play a crucial role in together with some other points in transformation of a dollar into this global currency that we see, right? Transformation had happened in early, not in early, but after second half of 21st century, right? 20th century, sorry. And I think only way, maybe you are linking this comment now with my reading of the big picture in terms of Middle East. When I say Western ruling class wants to shut down navigation through Persian Gulf, and I'm explaining why. I have explained this why. Maybe you think, well, why would Washington harm dollar in that case? And it will be harm, isn't it? Because tremendous volume of oil is being sold on the dollars by these Persian Gulf countries, right? But in strategical terms, for Western ruling class, they know process of de-dollarization is unstoppable. It's just unstoppable. Dollar will lose volume anyways, right? This is just objective reality. So that's the one thing, right? Secondly, in long terms, I think Western ruling class is more focused on dealing with or destroying China and Russia, right? One of the reasons, the main reason why they want to shut down navigation, create a regional war in the Middle East and shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf, is to cut off China from Middle Eastern energy, increase Chinese dependence on Russia towards the absolutely critical level, and then create tensions between Russia and China and force China to basically start a war against Russia to secure closest energy fields in Central Asia and Russian territory itself, right? That's their major plan. That's their end game, right? End game of the Western ruling class. And in their mindset, if my understanding of the situation is correct, in their mindset, end goal is bigger than anything else. If they will actually manage to provoke confrontation between Russia and China, and if they will manage to get rid of global South in general, including these major competitors on a geopolitical scale, China and Russia, while provoking confrontation between them, well, there is no higher reward for the Western ruling class, right? They will do anything for this. They will do anything for this to be achieved, right? Because all they dream about is to maintain their relevance in this world, maintain the dominance over this world, right? And yes, dollar will lose certain volume after navigation will be shut down in the Persian Gulf, but and so what? US, I'm quite sure US ruling class itself has an interest to weaken the dollar as much as possible, because this way it will be a little easier for them to pay back all these trillions and trillions. that they own to others, right? So I think, and I have said that quite a few times before too, that I think one of the directions of US policies is also to weaken the dollar, right? You think they did not knew that with this all sanctions policies and stuff, restrictions on Russia, for example, to use dollar, they will weaken dollar. They knew it. They want this to happen because only way they can pay back to investors 38 plus trillion for now is if dollar will undergo devaluation on a tremendous level, right? They will make from a dollar it's empty paper. It is empty paper basically, but the world don't know it yet. But it's only a matter of time, and they will devalue dollar so much so that yeah. And that's why quite a number of countries, they all understand this. China understands this, Japan understands this, India, Brazil understands this. They are decreasing, they are getting rid of their in assets that they have in terms of bonds, US bonds, right? They are selling it because they know they're gonna lose big time. So American society, I mean, if, I'm not financial expert, of course, but I think in next 10 to 15 years, the dollar will lose in value so much so that if, let's say, to say it simply, if, let's say, 3-bedroom home costs 300,000 today, $300,000 approximately. In 10, 15 years time, it will cost $1 million, probably more. And this will be intentional. This will be intentional. So there is a links, obviously, and there are Middle Eastern countries, including Saudi Arabia, did play a crucial role in the transformation of US dollar into this major world reserve currency that it still is, although significantly less influential than, let's say, 15, 20 years ago, isn't it? But eventually, I think US ruling class wants to devaluate dollar as much as possible because in that case, dollar, they can grab these dollars like in tons, right? And they can pay back these 38 trillions to whoever they own the money. It will worth nothing. When they take these loans, dollar was different. When they will give it back, if ever, it will be just freaking zero. It will have zero value almost, right? So that's what I think. And yet again, I'm not a financial expert, obviously, and my my English is not best, obviously, so I'm struggling to explain well enough what I want to say, but hopefully this is understandable. Hopefully my English is good enough. Thank you very much, Melvin, once again for joining our Patreon community. Hopefully more members of our bigger community on YouTube and Rumble will do the same and will join us on a Patreon. For now, this is it, dear friends. There was no super chat on Rumble. There was no questions, no donations from PayPal, so there is nothing to react on. And so I will end on that. In case you want to support my work, in case you like my work, first of all, and in case you want to support me to stay in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to donate to this project. Links of my PayPal, not my wife's PayPal, by the way. Also Boosty platform are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment, and also link to my Patreon, obviously, and hopefully more people will join us on Patreon. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day, and dear friends, for Patreon and Boosted communities, I will say that later on today I will publish a second news update, and let's see how day goes, but I think it will be not just a news update, second news update, but also I want to go in a very nice place here in city. I have read about it. It's wonderfully done and stuff, and I want to make video there. I myself want to see it. I want to go there with my family, and I will make video there to show you too. So hopefully it will work out. Hopefully it will work out. So this is it for now, dear friends. Have a wonderful day, and take care. Bye for now.